to this.
Yeah, that connects that, and it'll time you and cut you.
Okay. Well, Guy teed this up very well by explaining the challenges and the greenhouse gases and energy use and water depletion and all of that. So I'm happy that I didn't cover any of those, but if you ask an engineer to cover where we're going in the future, I realize that it's going to be a sort of a stream of consciousness for me, and I'll just go through some slides. In terms of social responsibility, really what we're realizing, and Tom mentioned integrated design and the changing role of the engineer, and we realize as engineers now our social responsibility lies in innovation and honesty. Honesty to tell the architects that they're making some dumb mistakes and still have them love us. And so we're wondering about whether we should change our firm name to In Your Face Engineering, but decided not to do that yet. But really, we understand the issues, we understand the problems, and in terms of taking social responsibility, those are just more of a group communal thing, and they've developed into future standards and future goals. And the way we have to meet those future goals is with innovation. And we want to talk about where some of those goals and challenges are going and what innovation has to, I guess I have to stand here to do it. So one thing we learned is show your qualifications, but remove it quickly before they ask any questions. Here is sort of the continuum of sustainability and the change in our industry. And as you see, the top is conservation, and the bottom is sort of current behavior and technology and how resources will start to change. And as you see, we have locations for LEED certified, LEED silver, gold, platinum. The Living Building Challenge is the latest that's put out by Cascadia Green Building Council. And we will talk about the standards there, where the natural step is. But eventually, in order to solve the problems that Guy presented earlier, we have to start to get to net zero, but move beyond that and get to regenerative buildings, because we have this huge stock of buildings that will never get there. So new buildings and new development has to get there. And we have to start to develop new standards with innovation to get there. So just wanted to sort of show you where the continuum of sustainable building will go in the future. So this is a slide I think some of you have seen, what we call from less bad to good to great. And this is, again, this is what we have to do to move forward in sustainability and innovation. LEED Platinum is better. Living Building, again, the Living Building is net zero energy, net zero water, net zero waste, zero carbon emissions. But what it requires is a change in occupants and occupant behavior and occupant expectation. So really, the cultural changes are going to be much more difficult because the technological changes are doable with innovation, with new technology, and their technology is already out there. And then you have to move beyond that. If we're going to be regenerative, we actually have to have people engaged in how a building operates, and that building continues to regenerate. A Living Building Challenge has these different petals, as they call it, to a flower. But some of the toughest ones to accomplish, depending on the climate, are water, net zero water. How do you accomplish that? But there's net zero energy, there's limit to growth. One of the things with the Living Building Challenge is habitat exchange. If you build on an unbuilt site, you have to dedicate habitat somewhere else that will never be built on. So again, keeping our footprint to what it is now, not what it will be later. Materials red list. There's a whole bunch of materials that are in there. Living Building Challenge that you could not use. PVCs are one of those, and we've been able to accomplish that in everything except for electrical cabling. And now you can buy electrical cable that's used on the space shuttle without any PVC, but it's 4 times the cost. So in the future, even that technology is doable. So you can do this, and it is being done. We have about 3 projects that are meeting the Living Building Challenge now in design. And how do we design to net zero? Let's just say the challenge in front of us is net zero. We're not going to regenerative now, but how do you design to net zero? First, you identify the available natural resources and build appropriately to your natural environment. And second is aggressively reduce the energy demand of the building, adjust the tenant expectations. That's really important. You can't go forward without education of the occupants. Then prioritize the energy, the renewable energy and strategies and application. We have this saying that, you can't have your renewable dessert until you've eaten your conservation vegetables. Okay, so you have to do that. The projects we design, we do not even start to apply renewable technologies, whether it's PV or wind or anything. We don't even look at them until we've reached 60 to 70% energy savings below standards today, because it does not pay back. Up to that point, conservation is cheaper than renewables. Then you would verify and commission and engage occupants in use of the buildings. But that's not enough. In order to achieve a net zero, you have to go back and recommission the systems and the occupants. And recommissioning the occupants is a separate talk I can give at some point, but that's a very important piece of achieving net zero. Then you have to figure out how to do net zero water. You harvest rainwater as much as you can. You eliminate the need for municipal water and municipal connections. There's many technologies, and they're even becoming plug and play for gray water, black water treatment. Granted, you don't have enough rainwater in some areas to do potable water reuse. But let's take this area, for example. You may at times not have enough rainwater to treat to potable water, but it's very humid, so you have condensate off air conditioning. So there's many ways to take innovation and meet those challenges. The same thing in Qatar, in the Middle East, we're designing buildings where it's little to no rain, but there's so much condensation off of these air conditioning units that are running 12 months a year. So we can capture that water. Living building challenge, the net zero water, 100% of occupant water use must come from captured precipitation or reuse of water that is appropriately purified. Net zero water waste, 100% of stormwater and building water discharge must be handled on site. The living building challenge allows you to have an emergency connection to municipal systems, but you cannot release to them on a regular basis. That's when you're net zero on the water side. Net zero energy is a bit different, because net zero energy, you have to just be net zero for 12 months out of an 18-month operation. So they allow you within that first 18 months, 12 months of operation to show that you're net zero. But here's an example of a black water system, that enhances the building. You can actually bring greenery into the building. That's part of this whole system. This is one of the manufacturers of planted cell black water treatment. This technology is out there. We're using it on buildings. So achieving net zero or 100% reclaim of black water and gray water is very, very possible. It just takes innovation. And what's the future? What are those demands? What are those standards that are coming out there that we have to meet? Here's the ASHRAE standards, and this is being adopted by California, that no building will get occupancy certification unless they have one of these tags on their door that shows their energy score. So the same thing, why do cars have to have mileage per gallon rating when you buy them, but buildings don't have to? This is becoming very fast a standard across the United States and the world. If we're talking about social responsibility, we have a social responsibility not only to design for future, but design now so it's net zero ready. We need to make buildings net zero ready, and it's very possible to do that. So profile the building's energy use and where you can be today with renewables and where you could be tomorrow with the renewables. 2030 challenge. By 2015, we have to have 70% reduction. by 2030 we have to be carbon neutral. We're not on track. We need to apply more innovation. But we can't just talk about energy use at buildings. The source is the issue, really. Because anytime we're using and connecting to the grid, whatever conservations you've had, as long as you're drawing from the grid, you're actually creating 3 times the emissions. So for a building that has 30 kBTU per square foot energy use intensity profile, the actual source emission is 90. Because the power that's generated, then by the time it gets to the building, you're only getting 30% of the energy that was used to generate that power. 30% is used through production, 30% through generation, through transmission. So that's why you can get that kind of a footprint or profile for your area. But that's why we feel the future is eco-districts. Because it's the same thing as all of you have heard, the most sustainable thing to do is to buy locally because of transportation and change in labor. Well, the same thing is true with energy and water. You have to trade locally. Why do eco-districts? Because you can trade energy between buildings. You can trade wastewater between buildings. You could trade the energy in wastewater between buildings. And why? But there are challenges. Why do eco-districts don't work? It's because there's infrastructure, and infrastructure is a business. So the utilities need to get into the eco-district business. In fact, many utilities are now taking a look at their role in a net zero world. What will be their role? What will be their income? Cities have sewers and water. What will be their role in a net zero world? So that has to change. And we have to create, by innovation, the energy model for eco-districts, and that's what the future will be. Distributed generation, distributed treatment, distributed net zero. Thank you.